Hello, welcome back to the channel. So this is the first Bot Action V3 video. So if you've followed my channel over the last couple of years, you know I've done quite a bit of Bot Action version 2. I didn't want to jump straight into the kind of hype train and comment. I wanted to play a bit of Bot Action and then share some of my thoughts on it. And I've now been able to. The other thing was there's West End Games in Glasgow. I've been stocking Bot Action and they've been running events for Bot Action, so I thought I'd buy my book there, give a little support to those guys. If you're in Glasgow, I think mainly on a Sunday they play it, and obviously at the ACVC War Games Fellowship on a Wednesday night. That's my club as well. So I obviously had to wait for them to get in stock and then get over the West End and pick it up. But anyway, Bot Action version 3. So I'll talk about the book and what I've done with it. I've had a couple of games where I thought, it's a beast of a book. It's very recognizably version 2. You know, I didn't have too much kind of negative reactions to it, if any. I mean, I'm quite happy to see play through. The only thing I'm kind of concerned about, and I hate to start off on a negative, well, I'll talk about the positives later on, is perhaps the way the platoons are built. You might see a bit stone, scissors, paper, but we'll see how that goes. Massive index. Oh, this is table of contents, and you've also got the index at the back, which is pretty cool. So the main things I've discovered is shooting. So before, you were 3s as a basic, and then number of pins, moved, long range, cover. So often you were hitting on 6s or super 6s, 6s followed by 6s. And I never really liked that too much in Bolt Action. It kind of, it felt like pushing your luck, etc. But in the new edition, it's basic force to hit, -1 if you've got any amount of pins, -1 if you've moved, and -1 if you're green. So basically everything generally is hitting on a 4s, 5s, 6s, maybe 7s if you were green troops moving with pins. And actually I really like the cover save mechanic. It gives me something to do when my opponent is doing something, and it felt all right actually. I've played some games, 500 points, kind of one platoon with maybe a bit of support to get into the swing of the rules. I've not really had to use the sort of down or rally orders yet. In all honesty, in my games I played, my mortars were extremely lucky, hit on 5s or 6s as required. Just flicking through the book there. It's a lovely book. Pictures, Bot Action of miniatures. You got lovely off-spray art there. I do like to flick through rule books and just look at stuff, and yeah, this is a beautiful rule book. What else has came up? Oh yeah, transport vehicles. I had a wee squad in a truck, and that got blown up quite quickly because it's the auto. If you damage it, it's destroyed. No roll on the damage table. So how I kind of think about transport my troops might change a wee bit. What we truck, talking about a truck. And obviously with machine guns, vehicle mounted machine guns getting half the shots, I used to, if I had the points, throw the odd machine gun on a truck or on a transport option. I certainly wouldn't be doing that this edition. My Bren carriers with 2 LMGs on them, yeah, I probably wouldn't be doing that this edition. I might even look at upgrading those LMGs to anti-tank guns on the Bren carriers. Because I've got a British Desert Army with lots of Bren carriers. As you know, I love my Bren carriers. I've got some of my Soviets as well. Yeah, so this is the sort of rifle platoons, how platoons are made. So you beat your rifle platoon. That allows you to take 1 each of all the other platoons. So yeah, so I'm wanting to see how kind of meta changes, how people start using that. Does it become rock, paper, scissors? What tournament restrictions people who play the game on a competitive level put in place, and see what gets adapted for that. So, because straight away you see people, oh, I'm going to take all the Nebelwerfers in the world and MRLSs, and I would do all these tank lists. But yeah, we'll see how it turns up. That was one thing I was a wee bit disappointed with, was the MRLS rules. I'd have liked to maybe seen the minimum distance increased a bit. Or, actually, my biggest bugbear with them is a building. If you target a building, you measure from the building at 6 inches. So suddenly that Nebelwerfer assault attack suddenly becomes really powerful. So I would have liked to have seen that sort of cut back a bit. But yeah, that's my only. Well, maybe just put it as like 18-inch minimum range. And don't get me wrong, I use Nebelwerfers. I also have a couple of MRLSs in my Soviet list. Well, certainly I do like my Katushka, because cheapest chips. But yeah, so far I've enjoyed my games. It's felt like bolt action. You know what? I'm not a competitive. I like to win. Don't get me wrong. But I'm not a competitive player. I like to think I win because I make good strategic decisions on the battlefield. More often than I don't, as opposed to kind of chopping in with the rules and sort of taking advantage of the rules. So yeah, army lists. Yeah, no, we know on the army lists, there was obviously the armies of books got published, so the lists came out, and then there was some like Chinese. I never knew there were so many Chinese players in the world, to be honest. Players of Chinese armies, that is. They all seem to come out and say it was on my army list. Well, actually, you know, maybe it's just because I'm an old school historical gamer. A man with a rifle is a man with a rifle. You know, the national characteristics don't make or break an army for me. So I'd be quite happy, let's say, picking a British army, having all sort of Chinese models, and just using those rules until you get a real. But saying that, I'm the sort of person that collects basically the same army 3 times over, just because they've got uniform differences, and I like the look of a uniform. So anyway, speaking of which, let's talk about what my plans are for bolt action, kicking off first. Hey, so as you can see in front of you is my Winter American Army. So I've had my Winter American Army for some time now. Probably my first games of bolt action I played using my Winter American Army. So what I'm going to do is primarily focus on my Winter American Army and get that up to scratch where I want it. My Chindits, I've been quite taken with doing some stuff in the Far East. Again, most of the army's painted. I've got at least a platoon painted. And then sort of back to the desert, I've got an Indian platoon to finish off on my Africa Corps. And they're probably going to be the armies I kind of focus on most in this edition of bolt action to begin with. So these are primarily the old metal models from the Winter Americans. There are 2 sort of boxers, veterans and regulars, so they're mixed in. What I've been doing with my Marines, and I played my Marines a lot during V2, was sort of thinking about fire and maneuver squads. So one squad might have all the bars, the other squad might be equipped with more assault weapons. So that's kind of what I'm going to replicate here, taking advantage of the national characteristics. So the change to the American one is you get extra shots if you're firing rifles, and bars don't count. So I had like quite a few bars. So what I've decided to do is have maybe a wee squad here. So if we look at my squad at the front, wee squad here, 2 bars with the 6 men, including the rifles, and then a sort of bigger squad arm with rifles. The idea, they'll be going forward and attacking places, they'll be manoeuvring and throwing around defensive fire. Other things I've discovered. So a couple of games I've used a sniper. Maybe it was just my bad luck. Snipers didn't really feel like they were having that much of an impact on the battle for the points. But this fella, the bazooka team, they were, they were amazing. The other thing with the bazooka team is pretty much if you hit something with it, you're killing it. We were playing low points value, so all the sort of brain carriers were getting blown up. If you hit a team, you're going to hit somebody. There's no small team modifiers, so actually a bazooka shooting at a sniper team or like an officer team is definitely going to start causing some damage there. So that got me thinking about, like, if I was to revisit my Soviets or even my British, the role of the anti-tank rifle as just like an ancillary sniper rifle, which I've talked about in the other video I did talking about my British. You know, 25 points, I think, for an anti-tank rifle. Generally, you're not going to be moving it that much, so it's going to be hitting on 4s or 5s. You know, you're not worried about Ranger stuff with a couple of pen on it. That's going to kind of worry light vehicles. It's also going to worry kind of weapons teams or small squads that it shoots at as well. So yeah, so I'm quite taken with that. Obviously, medic. I often pick armies based on models I like, so I really like the commander. It kind of reminds me a bit of Ron Swanson. So commander, medic, I really do like the model for the medic. What else did he use? Yeah, spotter, artillery spotter, which actually, come to think of it, last game I played, I didn't even use his ability. Wow. Hell, I kind of ran him on the board as a spotter for mortars. There you go. Stay on the game, Mr. Howe. And heavy machine guns, obviously I'd painted these fellas up because I was collecting armies before I was playing. And the heavy machine guns weren't as good as medium machine guns, in my opinion, as sort of ground based, keeping infantry down. But now they've got the more shots with the -1 pen, especially if you've got more light vehicles floating around, probably is well worth the points. Also, it's a nice wee vignette of sort of like trying to make some coffee, cook some food in the snow winter. What else have I done? Started painting the edges of my weapons teams, so not weapons teams, like special weapons, so I can know my bars from my regular rifles quite easily. That's what I was finding with my Marines. Setting them up, breaking down the squads was getting pretty difficult. I've also magnetized them, so I'm going a really useful box with magnets. So my tank's not finished, but I often get asked how did I do it. I'm going to do a bit more shading on it, probably make some of the snow look a bit less patchy. It's basically just a sponge. Painted it green, sponged it. I've got some work on tracks and weathering to do. But yeah, nice, quick and easy. So that's my US force. Probably add some sort of half tracks, maybe tanks. This will be more like a sort of like a standard World War II army. My Chindit force, that's going to be more of an infantry-based force, so that will have sort of heavy weapons and artillery platoons with the infantry, whereas this one definitely will have some armor in it. And yeah, I'm still playing around with what I want my Afrika Korps to look like. But anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know what your thoughts are on V3 at the moment. I've got another game arranged this week, so I'm quite looking forward to that. Look forward to chatting to you in another video. So that's goodbye for now. Goodbye.